So in Logger Pro, we are going to insert a movie, and the movies that I have here, I'm going to look at, say, one that is 120 centimeters of stretch on the Slinky. There's my video. Now here on the floor I had different areas marked. I always started here and then I stretched to here and here and here. So I know that this is 1 meter. You want to make sure, of course, as always, that you have calibrated the distance. So this line over here is 1 meter away from this line over here. And I want to try to go, along the length of the Slinky there, even though it's not perfectly horizontal or vertical on my screen. And then I also want to put the origin in place. And just to make sure that numbers end up being positive, I'm going to move this yellow ball over. That's the plus side, and so since my Slinky Waves are going to be moving to the left, I'll make that my positive direction as well. Note again that I tried to put the axis right along the direction that the Slinky is going to be traveling so that I can track the motion of the X, and I'm going to totally ignore anything in the Y direction. Alright, I'm going to get rid of those items here, and I'll just fast forward here through till I'm just about to release this piece. Alright, here I go. I pulled it out. Oh, you know what? Before I get too far, let me get back to where I release it. Before I get too far, you saw that it was kind of going in slow motion. Okay, I had this thing set to 120 frames per second, and so I want to make sure that that Logger Pro knows. So now I've released it here, and I can click through, and I can look for any point that I think is easily reproducible. Here, I see that this one has started to move. This one isn't moving. It's also a little higher than the others, so I can pick the peak of any of them. Pick something that hasn't moved yet. I would definitely stop before you get right down here because the amplitude gets very small and it's hard to pick out where that peak is. Now that's the end of that run. I could get it on the back if I wanted, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to let my video go ahead here, and I did it again. The exact same experiment. Okay, let me fast forward through here until I release it. There, it's been released. And I can set an additional point series by clicking here, and now when I click, you'll see I'll show up a different color. It would show up a different color if I was showing a color here, and basically it's going to be creating a different point series. And now I'll choose to let the video go again, and I did a third run just to see. So I'll save this, and then I will choose to export. Now let me go over to the Finder. I will find my 120 CSV file, and I see that this is the data. There are 3 separate runs there, 1, 2, and 3. Here the first column is X, and then is Y, and then is VX and VY. I don't care about any of the other ones, so here I'm going to delete those columns, and then again X and Y, and so I'm going to delete those columns. And again, I don't care about Y or the velocity columns. Okay, now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to get rid of all of this data, all of this. So delete and shift the cells up, and we'll do the same thing here. Edit, delete, shift the cells up. Okay, so what I have here are 3 runs of data, and I changed the time, but it's really the time spacing that's going to matter as far as I care. So in fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new time column. This will be 0, and then this will be equal to the row above, plus, and now my time step, which is 1/120th of a second, since I had 120 frames per second. And I'm going to drag it all the way down here. And so Here's what the other thing I'm going to do is these x values are all, starting at different places and things. Let me just call x equals 0 that first data point. So I'm going to do it like this, absolute value of this minus this, and I'll put a $sign on the number 2 so that when I drag it, the column can change, but the row will not change. And so here's what this will do, is if I drag it over here, I see that I've changed it to D minus D2, and this is C minus C2. But now if I drag it downward, note that it goes B3 minus B2, C3 minus C2, D3 minus D2, D4 minus D2. So I've basically just subtracted this value from each of the columns. Now I also want to get rid of all of these because that's not real data, because these were all blank here, and get rid of these because that's not real data. Those are all blank there. And so I can now take a look and see what my data looks like. Let's just try to plot it just to get some idea of what's going on. Insert a chart, XY scatter, and there we go. I have 3 data sets, and they're all pretty close to the same slope. Yeah, you could argue that the blue one is ever so slightly different, but the gray and the orange are really very close to the same slope. So I'm happy with the fact that all 3 runs, it really gave me pretty close to the same speed, because the slope, of course, is the speed. Okay, I'm going to go one step further, and that is, because they're all the same, why don't I make them all the same data set? So I'm going to just take all of this, copy, and I'm going to paste the values. Remember, I had done a bunch of calculations over here, so I just want these to be values. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just put them end to end. So I'm going to take this set of time data up to the bottom one of my second row, and I'm just going to paste it at the end again, and then copy from here and paste it there. Okay, and then look at where this one ended and copy the time again, paste, and copy the data and paste. So now what I have here is a time and position plot, and I can insert a chart, XY scatter. There it is, that's all of the data. And now I can add a chart element like a trend line. And my trend line, I'm going to want to show the equation on the chart. And so my trend line is this dashed blue line, and it goes at a slope of 4.106. So that would be the speed that I got in this case.